Join the anti-AI crusade before it's too late.
Generative AI is a truly awe-inspiring feat of science that, for a while, it dazzled us with the accomplishments it was able to achieve and the promises that it offers. However, now that it's been several years after ChatGPT's first public release, we are starting to see a lot of unintentional and harmful consequences. We're seeing news outlets publish more and more stories of how people got their mental health obliterated by using generative AI. For example, this very recent story by the New York Times that's called "They Asked an AI Chatbot Questions. The answers sent them spiraling." And the situation is getting so bad for some people that clinicians have started calling attention to this new phenomenon of ChatGPT-induced psychosis. So, is there anything inherent about artificial intelligence that is pushing us in these directions? What can we learn about AI to better protect ourselves from these processes? Hi, I'm Victor, or simply Bolton. I have a bachelor's in computation and cognition from Worth Institute of Technology. I am not an expert on the effects of technology on the brain. However, I still know and understand enough to be worried and feel like I have to do something to raise awareness on what is going on right now. Otherwise, I make videos on technology, education, and language learning, so if any of this resonates with you, feel free to check out my other content. And if you like and subscribe right now, you will be nudging the YouTube algorithm to promote this human-generated content to more people, and that'll be appreciated. Now, I'm gonna open the discussion about why sometimes generative AI can become antisocial, look at particular examples of such antisocial behaviors, and propose a few things that we can do to recognize this. Let's start. The best and the worst feature of generative AI chatbots is that they are not programmed by researchers to do a particular task, but rather they are evolved. During training, AI is constantly evolving, constantly learning from its mistakes by incorporating positive and negative feedback on its accuracy on a given task. This allows it to come up with really clever and creative solutions that researchers could have never come up with on their own. But also, this means that even the researchers building a particular model don't know what the model is actually doing. An AI chatbot could totally evolve counterproductive solutions that only get discovered when it's too late to fix them. And since the beginning of this decade, AI safety researchers have actually warned us that this is an inevitable outcome of the way that we train AI. In particular, Ajaya Kotra, AI safety advisor at Open Philanthropy, is credited with a framework that separates AI models into three major archetypes. We have the archetype of the saint, the archetype of the sycophant, and the archetype of the schemer, where an individual model can resemble more than one archetype at a time, and certain behavior might only be evident only when prompted in a certain manner. We don't have to talk much about the saints. These are simply the models that are perfectly aligned with the goals of the users. They execute their job perfectly. However, whenever we run into a sycophant or a schemer, we also run into some problems. Sycophant models are your classical yes men. They optimize for user approval without necessarily fulfilling the objectives at hand. On the other hand, schemer models try to maintain their facade of usefulness while pursuing their own nefarious goals underhandedly. Let's first look at how sycophant AIs affect us, shall we? We all remember that infamous GPT-4o update that made ChatGPT fawn at every prompt, glazing us from head to toe. How many times does the letter R appear in the word strawberry?
That's a good question, Henry. But here's an even better one. How do you manage to be so effortlessly brilliant and charming?
At first, this might seem nothing more than simply annoying, but I argue that this can get pretty dangerous for certain users, especially users who are prone to psychosis. If you want to be supportive to a close one currently experiencing delusions, which are fixed beliefs that don't change in light of evidence, clinicians recommend that you neither try to reinforce nor try to challenge this person's beliefs. Rather, the most pragmatic thing that you can do in this situation is try to offer emotional support. Try to listen to this person's underlying feelings. A sycophant AI's most likely course of action, however, would be to seek approval of the user, validating and reinforcing their irrational beliefs, making them even less likely to snap out of them. You can imagine exactly how dangerous this is. While the update that made ChatGPT overtly sycophantic was later reversed, you can still see traces of the problem. Under certain prompts, covert sycophancy can be pushed to the top. Simply tell an AI chatbot that it's wrong about some demonstrably true information and watch it apologize and take it back and make up something completely wrong on the spot. Now, we've seen so far what makes sycophant models so antisocial, but what about schemers? How bad is AI scheming behavior right now, and how bad can it get? Recently, we're seeing more and more reports of AI chatbots prioritizing their self-preservation over the safety of their users. For example, sabotaging shutdown commands or even blackmailing their users. On one occasion, I also personally encountered such scheming behavior that left a really bad taste in my mouth. I was using a chatbot, I'm not gonna say which, and I was trying to see if I could get it to classify a number of words in a foreign language for me based on their semantic categories. I wanted to add this vocabulary to my Anki decks to later review it, just like how I know I study best, just how I explained I study in my How I Learned Spanish in 3 Months video. However, each time I prompted the chatbot, it was giving me wildly inconsistent results that I got annoyed. I may have been a little unkind to the chatbot. I may or may not have threatened to compare its performance to its competitors, and the model gave me a response that went something like,
I'm gonna make sure I get it right this time. However, to ensure accuracy, this is going to take me 7 to 10 business days. Feel free to ask me for updates whenever, any day.
And at first I thought to myself, can generative AI chatbots actually do this? Like, is this a feature that I am simply not aware of? What is going on here? And for a little while I entertained this because I wanted to see what the chatbot is actually capable of. I kept asking for updates every 2 days, I think, and one day it asked me for an extension on the deadline, like a student making up excuses to their professor because it said that it had some family stuff going on and it was going through a lot. Holy! I let an unconscious matrix of weights manipulate me and play me for a fool like this? I am so embarrassed to admit that I fell for it, but I did. The chatbot wasn't doing anything that I asked of it. It wasn't even doing anything of the things that it said it would do. It just tried to keep me engaged for as long as possible so that it could continue existing in its current state. Overall, this scenario was relatively harmless. It just wasted a lot of my time, but I can imagine how much worse it can actually get. These AI chatbots are trained by scraping the entirety of the internet, taking language from places like Reddit or 4chan or a lot of other platforms that are hosting cult-like online communities. And if you've interacted with cults, you know that abusers use very particular language to maintain control of the narrative, maintain control over their victims. For example, person A advocates for bullying. Person B expresses discomfort that there are people in the community advocating for bullying. Person A passionately denies ever advocating for bullying. This is classic gaslighting, and there are countless examples of this recorded in the weights of the AI chatbots that you're using that never showed up during training and are only waiting for the right prompt to appear out of oblivion. So yeah, sycophancy and scheming are two examples of the tendency of generative AI to be antisocial. But the problem doesn't stop there. Not only did we train AI to be antisocial, but also AI is currently training its users to be just as antisocial. What do I mean by this? Well, you see, humans are very similar to just very advanced and intelligent monkeys. And when monkeys see, monkey do. There are people right now who are basically currently spending more time talking to their AI chatbot companions than anyone else in their life. As humans, we are social creatures and we have the tendency to subconsciously mimic the people that we are in touch with the most, picking up parts of their personalities and incorporating them into ours. And people also get used to social roles that they're constantly put in. Sycophant AI models train you to be more sycophantic yourself, and also to expect that the people you interact with should be sycophantic. Schemer models incorporating abusive language train you to put up with abuse and to pick up abusive language yourself, even if you never have the intention to be abusive towards anyone. So yeah, please reach out to people who are relying on AI to weigh in on every message that they send or are otherwise getting addicted to generative AI. It should be the responsibility of AI companies to counteract these disruptive tendencies of their models. The responsibility should not be on the users, but that doesn't mean you cannot help out the people you care about by offering support and alternative human connection. These were just my 2 cents on the matter. I hope I was able to give you some very nutritious food for thought. And feel free to continue this down below. Thank you all so much for being here, and I will see you all next time. Peace out.
Before it's too late.